Hey everybody, I'm CJ, and a couple of days ago I was talking about how the the comic book shill websites are sort of returning to your regularly scheduled programming, and I guess to further that little thesis of mine, uh, here we've got Newsarama, and just see for yourself. Best Iron Man stories of all time, something something Daredevil 25, review of Justice League comic book, some goings on with Marvel villains, goings on with Chris Claremont and Wolverine comic books, on and on and on. Some pretty normal, sort of middle of the road fare for comic book discussion and news and all that stuff. All in all, not too bad. Then you get to CBR, and mostly it's same song, different verse. And in fact, if anything, they're soft pedaling some of the woker stuff that's going on right now. You've got I Am Not Starfire, which gives Teen Titans hero a teenage goth daughter. True insofar as it goes, but as we all know, there's maybe a little bit more to it than that. But aside from that, there's some discussion about The Mandalorian, discussion about Spider Man 3 and symbiotes and Venom and all that fun stuff. Yeah, there's goings on with this. But honestly, I mean, that's a hard. If you do uh, anything like a comic book news aggregation website, this is kind of a difficult story to avoid, I suppose. So, whatever. So, you've got that going on. And just for the most part, this is, again, it just seems like some pretty accessible, pretty normie friendly news and coverage and discussion and whatnot. Even Bleeding Cool isn't really all that bad. You look at what they're saying about comics, and they've always had sort of a emphasis on indie books and anything outside of the big two. And certainly you see that going on here. But I mean, for the most part, it's just not all that bad. It really isn't. Uh, there's just nothing, or there's very little in terms of ultra woke and anything to do with uh, uh, really much of anything that's political. I mean, this is just it. Just seems like it's a website that seeks to inform and entertain and all that. And then and then you get into the Mary Sue, and apparently they didn't get the fucking memo, because whereas the other sites tended to soft play uh, all of the different woke stuff that's going on right now, the Mary Sue they're jumping into it feet first. Then after that, you've got this pro-abortion, anti-religious hashtag that was bouncing around on Twitter for a little while. Something that has news item number three here is something that has really nothing at all to do with comics at all. Anything to do with comics or anything really geek media, TV shows or film or anything. It's just nothing to do with anything. Then from there, it gets better. They talk about how, well, basically, there's this entire world of bullshit that's going on right now with that Netflix show, The Crown, and what they're doing, and perhaps more importantly, what they're not doing. And it this is just these are just the top news stories. You look around elsewhere on the homepage, and yeah, you start getting into a little bit more normie friendly type stuff. Nancy Drew and the prom and all these other sorts of things. I mean, some of this stuff is David Ramsey. Some of this stuff is slightly more normie friendly, but then you get into other things like Trump and pardons and all of this other stuff. It's like, did no one sit the people at the Mary Sue down and say, okay, guys, now from now on, we're going to be a little bit more circumspect about all the wokeness and all that stuff. Anything to do with race or with biological sex or gender identity. Yeah, we're gonna soft pedal that stuff a little bit from now on. Apparently, no one ever said that to the powers that be at the Mary Sue, and it's just so striking. I mean, Newsarama, pretty normal. CBR, pretty normal. Bleeding Cool, even Bleeding Cool is pretty normal. But then here comes the Mary Sue. It's just funny. So if you need any evidence that this whole idea of all shill media perhaps moving on to other targets, specifically Star Wars, well, if you need proof of that, I don't know if this counts as proof, but perhaps it's corroborating testimony. I don't know. But what I really wanted to talk about, in brief, really, is the New Warriors #1. Because speaking of wokeness, this is kind of a nice little time capsule of a time when a comic book could just be fun. You know, it. But when New Warriors #1 came out, it was okay for a comic book to just be a comic book, and the and obviously in case it doesn't go without saying, I'm not talking about the internet gas New Warriors like the new social justice warriors. I mean OG New Warriors #1 from the 90s. And I mean, first off, just look at the cover. All right, you've got Firestar. She's looking very svelte, very sexy, very appealing. Nemorita or Namorita. Uh, I never actually figured out how what the best pronunciation for this character's name is, but Namorita, I suppose. Also looking very svelte. Kid Nova, Speedball, Night Thrasher, Marvel Boy, they're all looking jacked from here to Sunday. And it's just, first off, is this the greatest cover ever? No. But this cover does go a long way towards illustrating, what the New Warriors concept is all about, how it differs from things like Fantastic Four, X-Men, Avengers, and all uh, these other covers that the characters are jumping through, like literally leaping into a new era for Marvel Comics. And so, I mean, like I say, is this the greatest cover ever? Maybe not, but it does get the message across. These are new characters. This is a new team, new ideas, perhaps new values that are underlying this book, different philosophies that didn't necessarily apply before. Basically, I guess at the time that this comic book came out, I guess Gen X was on the come. And so you get the idea that these are some teenage, kind of Gen X teenage superheroes, and very different from what's come before. And getting into the actual comic, I mean, first off, just I'm a Mark Bagley fan from way back, and you've got this. First off, it's just a cool perspective to draw from, this kind of upward-looking perspective. You've got Night Thrasher. This is going to be like the person he's dangling off the side of the building here. This is going to become important in just a moment. But the got this gigantic friggin' moon in the background. The sky is pitch dark, and I mean, just so much atmosphere on this page. And then obviously things sort of carry on from there. You get the idea that this is actually more like training session or something. And this is a comic book, and this is the point. This is a comic book that's meant to entertain and thrill, and it's supposed to be an adventure and all this. And no woke politics, even though there are some POC characters running around. No woke politics. It's no politics at all. In fact, it's just meant to be fun, and it's a comic book that could not be made today. It's controversial by not being controversial at all. And it's just kind of a nice little callback to the way things used to be. And I don't think I want to go too much further in the comic book so as to appease the copyright gods, but I mean, you get the idea. This is not the greatest issue in the entire run of the New Warriors. I think the series would actually get better as it went along, but this is actually a really solid start and basically tells you everything you need to know about these characters, who they are, Kid Nova and all that, their introductions and or reintroductions in most cases. But this is just the sort of thing that you just wouldn't get today, couldn't get today. So anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, make sure you're still subscribed, comment, like, and share this video because it really helps me out. Also, you can find me on Twitter at Cole Loves Comics.